Welcome to Step Into the Arena, redefining equine assisted coaching. We're Diana Gogan and Janice Story, coaches, horsewomen, and founders of a comprehensive equine assisted coach training program rooted in personal transformation and authentic horse-human partnership. Join us in conversations about what it truly means to coach with horses as equal partners and co-facilitators. We explore the heart, soul, and foundations of equine assisted coaching and what it takes to become a coach who changes lives. If you're curious about becoming an equine assisted coach, you're in the right arena. If you've been watching any of our previous videos, you've noticed that we've been talking a lot about different aspects of equine assisted coaching. And today we really want to talk about what you'll actually learn in the Freedom Way Equine Assisted Coaching Certification Program. What sets us apart from other programs? And this is really for anybody who is curious about becoming an equine assisted coach and looking at various training programs, because our program is different. And what you'll walk away with and what you'll learn is different from other programs. And so that's why we feel it's important today to spend a little time talking about that. So let's start with a big question, Janice. Why choose the Freedom Way?
So when you're choosing an equine assisted coaching course, it can't be a one size fits all. There has to be a difference. This is really about opening people up to their own intuition, to partnering with the horses, not just using them as tools, and learning a new way of supporting others.
You're so right, because we're not cookie cutter. And we don't just use horses as a means, as a tool to get to the end. We actually teach about partnership, about presence, about respect. We have some ethics that we talk about in not only working with horses and clients, but also within ourselves and within in the industry. This is not something that is, like Janice said, one size fits all. What is helpful for one client is not the same for another. And so we really teach our students the flexibility to work with who shows up that day. I remember, Janice, very early on, you in your career as an equine assisted coach, you shared an experience that you had with a client, and it was a very powerful demonstration of why cookie cutter doesn't work.
That's so true, Diana. I had gone into a session with a brand new client at the residential treatment center I work at. And first time I met the client, that day, there happened to be a amazing woman there that came out to join the session with me. It was also the first time I had met her. And she had been certified through another program, through another equine therapy program. She was a therapist and had been certified through this other program. And I remember her asking me a question that at the time seemed kind of silly to me, but she said, "What are we doing today?" And I kind of looked at her, and she went on to say, on the first day, we do XYZ. And it was a strange question to me at the time, because I like to start out just letting the client connect with the horse. No intentions, no agenda. There was no preconceived outcome in my mind. Just let him connect with the horse. And she kind of looked at me like, "Oh, okay." So put the client in with the stall. Long story short, just invited the client to just be present with the horse. If he wanted to touch the horse and pet the horse, that was fine. He had never been around horses at all. So he asked me, "What do I do?" And I said, "You can just put your hand on her and just pet her." He asked for a brush, so I gave him a brush. So he was just brushing the horse a little bit, kind of petting her. And this amazing woman, like I said, she's incredible. She started asking him all kinds of questions. "What do you think it means when the horse moves its ears like this? What do you think it means when the horse does this?" And I stood back. She was kind of standing behind me, behind my shoulder. And I stood back and I'm listening. And everything she said was true. They were valid questions. But I could feel this client's emotions come up. I could literally feel, I was watching his body language, the way he was moving. I was watching the way the horse was moving. but I wasn't throwing out all of these random questions. I was just letting him be. And after a few minutes, I could really feel, like I said, the emotions just bubbling up to the surface. I kind of put my hand up because she had never stopped talking. There's never any breathing in there. There's no silent, quiet stillness for the client. And as she's, I kind of put my hand up like shh, in a very gentle way. And I approached the client and I said just a couple of words. I asked him, what's coming up for you right now? And he looked at me kind of surprised, like, what do you mean with the horse? And I said, no. I says, what's coming up inside? And he paused for a moment and he said, I feel like I've been living my life looking through a window pane. And I can still feel the emotion today. I I can feel it coming up inside me. So I got to fight back the tears for a moment because he leaned into the horse and just let loose. This client just bawled. So I invited him to rest his head on the horse, and the horse just held him. It was an incredible experience. I just let him be. I asked if I could put my hand on his back just firmly so he could feel that support, and he was able to let loose. Later, he had shared with me that was the first time he'd ever felt emotions. It was an incredible experience. We'd probably gotten to that space 5 minutes sooner if all of the talking hadn't been going on. And she was just doing what from a scripted book that she learned basically. Um, there was always an agenda. Day one, you did this. Day two, you did this. Day three, you did this. And I remember her asking me later, what just happened? It totally caught her off guard. She says, how did you know? And that's when I realized following your intuition, being able to read the horse's energy. And this is what Diana and I teach in the Freedom Way, is how to read what's going on with the horse and with the client. You can't do that from a script. And that's why it was important for us to create something that was different and unique. And every student that comes through our course has an opportunity to take this and make it their own. They're using their own intuition. They're partnering with the horses, not just using the horses as a tool to point things out. We teach the students how to feel, how to intuitively know what is going on in a session. And it was an incredible experience, one that I'll never forget.
I love that story because it really speaks to the core elements. And Janice and I, when we first started talking about putting this program together, we were actually sitting around her kitchen table, talking about what we wanted and what was important for us based on our experience in coaching to bring to the student to help help train others. And this was one of the things. It was absolutely following your heart, following the breadcrumbs, following the signs of your intuition, of your empathy, of tuning into the emotion, of reading the horse, and all of those different things. And that's why agendas don't work. We help our students move into that space confidently of just showing up with the client, reading the energy, reading everything going on within that space, and following what they know to be the right next steps. And we've seen time and time again where sessions and client experiences flow so beautifully when this process is followed. It's not something to shortcut. And sure, so as we learn something new, we like to have a script, right? We like to have an outline. We like to have it all evenly laid out that you do A, B, C, and D. And when you do those things in this order, then this is the result. It'd be great. It doesn't work that way. And when you can let go of that, things really happen beautifully in that session. And we see our students all the time be a little nervous about this, about showing up and just feeling into the session and knowing and reading in the session. And we spend weeks teaching these concepts and these principles. We spend a week hands-on, a full week hands-on with the horses every single day, really experiencing this so that by the end of the retreat, our students are confidently showing up in the stalls, throwing out the agenda, and just meeting and greeting their client and the horse and everybody from where they are that day. It's something we call the trilogy of connection. At the heart of the Freedom Way, we also really feel it's important to consciously create partnerships with horses. Not again using them as a means to an end or using them as a tool, but actually seeing them as an equal coach. The client has two coaches stepping in. One has four legs and one has two. And so that is a really another important concept at the Freedom Way is really seeing horses as sentient beings and recognizing them as an equal coach.
It really is. It's learning to recognize the horse's energetic, nonverbal feedback that they provide. Being able to create a safe space where both the horses and the client feel safe and relaxed. That's important, is creating that safety for both, right?
And you touched on something that is so important. We are used to a lot of traditional ways of talk therapy and talk coaching where everything is verbal. The true power of an equine assisted coaching session for a client is in the realm of the nonverbal, of being able to read more information and in greater depth all the things that are happening beyond the verbal layer. And so, again, we've talked about this already. That's why when our program, we really do stress energy, intuition, empathy, of course, some coaching skills. As a coach, we teach you those core coaching competencies. Let's see if I can say that without getting tongue-tied there. But teaching you how to really read those subtle cues, how to hold that sacred space and let transformation happen naturally as it will versus being manipulated or forced.
Right. And Diana, I love it when our students realize that for the first time, that they truly are partners with what they do. And the horse has their own wisdom to share.
So let's get specific. What exactly do students learn in our 5-month level 1 certification?
Well, we start off teaching them trauma-informed coaching techniques, right? That's something that's really important to be able to create safety. We teach them how to lead really organic client-led sessions with the client that's in front of them at that moment. There's no scripts. Effective communication with the clients and the horses, how to read the client, how to watch for their body movement, their body language. Are they regulated? How to tell that in the horse, how to take those cues from the horse, like Diana just mentioned, too. Reading energy and being able to shift the sessions right in the moment.
Mhm.
What happens? And that you can only do that without an agenda, right?
Right. It's very fluid, isn't it? With
Yeah.
flow is a word that a lot of that we hear a lot, and a lot of our students will say that, wow, that session really felt like it flowed.
Mhm.
And that's everything that Janice just described. And of course, in addition to that, some basic care and handling for horses is also very important. In our course, you don't need to have prior horse experience. If you do, that's obviously a plus and a bonus. This is such a fast-growing field that was one of the limitations that Janice and I wanted to take off the table. And so as part of our course, you learn that basic horse handling and care. And you get to apply that, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of times at the retreat. Because you get to interact with those horses at the retreat and put everything you've learned into practice. And that is part of Janice and I feeling comfortable in certifying you, is that knowing that you have those basic horse handling skills to keep both you, the client, and the horse safe. Holding space is another thing that we often talk about, and it might seem like that is not, holding space may not seem like an action word, but it is such an action word. I don't know if that's the right way to describe that. Holding space is where you kind of put your arms around the whole session, the horse, the client, you, the energy and everything happening, and you are there not as an observer, although that is some of the role you do, but as an interactive player within that. So learning how to hold space for both individuals and groups for their own growth and transformational experiences that they have with the horses. And all of this stuff that we've just talked about is the fun stuff, right? We love to do that, have those experiences where you're in the moment and you're in the flow and you're reading everything that's happening in that space. But an important part of becoming an equine assisted coach is also knowing how to run a business. You're in this not only for the heartfelt experience of just who you are and wanting to be able to offer and give this from the heart, but in the practical world that we live in, it's also a source, your source of income. And so building or expand, whether you're building a brand new business or expanding an existing one, we teach you some very basic core competencies for business.
Right. And like Diana mentioned about the retreat, the experiential, we have a 5.5 day retreat. So our students are able to interact with not just one or two horses, but 7 to 9, sometimes 10, depending on who's here at the time, but at least 7. There's always at least 7 of them here. So they really get that real time experience during that retreat. And we bring in clients for them to work with. So the last couple of days of the retreats, they are working with actual clients, not just practice clients. They are real clients. So the moment they leave the retreat, they're ready. They're stepping into their business. They're going back. They're finding horses to work with if they don't have them. We teach that too. We
Mhm.
show them how to partner with some rescues or places if they don't have a horse. So that's another part of our program is there's no horse required because we'll teach you where to find them and how to work with them.
That I think is one of the things that is sets our program apart is that we wanted to take some of the limitations off. There are so many people who love the coaching field and would love to be able to combine horses within that. And not everybody has that opportunity or is at the place in their life where owning a horse is really practical or reasonable. And so, like Janice says, we really work with those people who don't own horses and to help find um, different circumstances where they can find horses to work with without actually having to own the horse themselves. So, of all the things that we've talked about, what do you think is the topic that surprises people the most or surprises students the most when they research our program?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question, Diana, because as we're talking, I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think one of the things that really surprises them the most is the personal growth that they go through during the course.
Hmm.
They love coming to the retreat, getting to know the other coaches. Before the retreat, they've spent 9 weeks on Zoom with each other. So they already get to know each other, but they come that first night and the hugs start right then and there. They feel like they've known each other. They feel like they've already met in person, but the growth that they go through during the retreat and they're ready. They're ready to step out and start into that business. They're ready to go.
And I think the personal growth, and we really didn't talk, haven't even talked about that yet. That's one of our core philosophies is that for us to be effective coaches, we also actually it's necessary for us to do our own work continually to continue to learn and grow within this field so that we are effective and that we can help support people with a substantial background of knowledge and experience. And of course, starting out, you're just learning with some of that. So that personal transformation is a huge part of this. I want to share another thing that I think really surprises students who are researching programs a lot, and that is that we are very heavily nonverbal based. That's not to mean Janice and I don't talk a lot and we don't train you a lot because we do. But we really teach you to look into those nonverbal realms. There's so much information to read the energy, to listen to your intuition, to really know empathically what information you're picking up, to understand everything that the horse is communicating in this session that is not verbally communicated. And all of this is done without an agenda. There are a lot of other types of programs out there that have agendas and that focus solely on mind learning. And we really make this a whole body learning where you bring all of who you are as a coach into this session and create very powerful sessions because of that, because it's beyond that verbal layer. As Janice was talking about, this isn't just a certification. This is truly a transformation. You will be a completely different version of yourself on graduation day than the very first day of class. And that is really, that's a really beautiful thing that Janice and I like to witness and see happen. And it's always fun for coaches to reflect back and say, wow, look how much I've changed and grown through this experience.
It really is. And, we're just sharing a few things that make us different, right? We're, we're sharing this much when there's actually this much.
Right.
But you'll walk away from this course ready to facilitate sessions with the integrity to do so and the intention to do so, and guiding others through their own transformation in life.
You'll know how to honor the horse as an equal, as a coach, honor their wisdom and bring that wisdom into the session. Learn how to customize your offerings, to create services that are an extension of you, bringing in your experience and your knowledge so that they are truly an extension of you. And because of that, you really create a soul-aligned business. Every single one of our students creates a coaching business that has the core foundational pieces in it, but it looks different. Every single business looks different. It looks different than Janice's business. It looks different than my business because we really support you in creating that soul-aligned business that fits you.
It really is, Diana. And, most importantly, you get to show up authentically and bring all of who you are into this work. That's what makes it so incredible.
And that's why we do this work, right? Because we feel it in our heart, we feel it in our soul. And so bring it into the work that you do.
Yeah.
If your heart is nudging you and you want to learn more, we really encourage you to reach out and visit the website. Also, Janice and I are very accessible. So if you have some questions or you want to talk more about the program one-on-one, we're more than happy to do that. And we'd love to talk to you about that. So thanks for watching this episode. And we hope to see you in the arena with us one day real soon. Thanks for joining us inside the arena. If today's episode sparked something in you, be sure to like and subscribe and watch for upcoming episodes. To learn more about the Freedom Way Equine Assisted Coach Certification Program, as well as other training and learning opportunities, visit us at freedomwayequinecoaching.com.